We got here later.
I don't know. Who did
Get your adrenaline going.
I guess so.
That's my 10. No. Huh?
Yeah, I can't do it.
All right. So, fair enough. Everybody
It's gonna be here.
I didn't know that. Former.
The most experienced mayor we have.
All right, we are gonna get this meeting started really quickly. The mayor is not here. So one of the council is gonna choose an acting mayor for this meeting. So Al, it's your meeting to start and run.
Okay. I still see we have.
Okay, my computer's at 12. So
I'm gonna use this as our
Yeah.
official clock.
Yeah.
Always had. Waiting for something else.
Nick?
the next step is.
Yeah.
And then we're
Yes.
Mark's not staying. Well, the clock says it's noon, even though other things say it's past noon. I'd like to start this meeting. Welcome, everyone. First thing we do is say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a roll call.
Chad Leo,
Here.
Nancy Rondell,
Here.
Al Dyke,
Here.
John Cox. Matt McGarrett is absent, but we do have a quorum.
The first part of the meeting is for citizens' comments. If you have something to say to us that is not on today's agenda, this is your time to do it.
Real quick, sorry. Last Friday, I met with the West Mercia detectives from the United Kingdom, the Crown Prosecution, the United States Prosecutor, and the FBI, in reference to our bomb threat back in 2021. And it was to determine, we know who it is, and it's a matter of whether we prosecute him in the United States or we prosecute him in the United Kingdom. And so he has some physical and mental issues, which would make it sort of difficult to extradite them over here. But we're working on it. It could be a 1-year process. It could be a 4-year process. But I just want everybody to know that we do know who it is and that we are gonna, one way or another, attempt to prosecute them. So.
Okay. I'll defer to you, Jim. Should we do nothing tonight and just carry on? Just recognize them?
We should just carry on, yes.
Good. All right. Any other comments? Close that part of the meeting. We have a consent agenda, and we have an objection to one of the items on it.
Major watersheds within that area. So that's the Sheboygan River watershed, which drains out to Lake Huron, and then we have the Little Traverse Bay, Lake Charlevoix, and Elk River Chain of Lakes draining out to Lake Michigan. We also like to recognize that our service area lies within the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, and we will continue to work alongside them to protect this area for the next 7 generations. All right, so first and foremost, whenever we give presentations, it's always really important to cover what a watershed is for anyone who's unfamiliar. A watershed is an area of land that drains toward a receiving body of water. And anywhere you are, you're always in a watershed. Those boundaries or delineations are determined by elevation to depend where the water is actually flowing. The activities that happen on the landscape can impact our waters. And those happen through 2 main ways. That's point source pollution and non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is anything that's coming directly out of a pipe where you can identify where that source is coming from, but does also have regulatory oversight, whereas non-point source pollution does not. Non-point source pollution comes from a variety of different sources, and they're harder to identify, whereas you can't see them coming directly out of a pipe, essentially. So that's coming from things such as, agricultural activities, urban development, things like failing septic systems are examples of non-point source pollution. And within the waters of northern Michigan, that is our primary threat to water quality is non-point source pollution. So currently, the Watershed Council has a grant. We received a grant earlier this year from the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation to work on stormwater solutions. So for this area, we are, the goal for this grant is to support local governments in addressing issues with stormwater runoff to Little Traverse Bay watershed specifically through effective local regulations. Now, obviously, political boundaries are a little bit different than watershed boundaries, so we are kind of looking or working on this project throughout Emmett County. But what we're doing as part of this project is both me and one of my co-workers who's in the policy, tackles more policy related things. I'm more on like the education on the ground type projects. So the things we're working on with this grant is that we're researching local policy options. We're developing educational materials and offering presentations similar to what I'm doing today. And then we're going to be surveying local governments in both Emmett and Charlevoix counties, and I'll get into all this in just a little bit more detail later. So, next slide. So, Stormwater 101. It's a pretty basic concept. Any rainwater or snow melt that flows over an impervious surface and enters a waterway is what we refer to as stormwater. So, when it runs over those impervious surfaces, increased development increases the amount of stormwater. And it also increases the volume of runoff as well as the rate of runoff. So more hard surfaces, that's more water that's not being able to infiltrate the ground and is running over these hard surfaces. And then also is moving at a much faster rate entering our water bodies than is normal. And then all of those factors kind of lead to degraded water quality. And this here is just a really simple graphic of kind of what I'm talking about. Hitting impervious surfaces, and then it goes into a storm drain and out to our water body. This is another nice graphic, which I know may not be super easy to see, but I think it's a really good example of what stormwater or when rain falls or snow melts looks like on natural ground cover. So that's no impervious surfaces versus what happens as you start to see more development. You see less infiltration, you see less evapotranspiration, but much higher runoff on those surfaces. Slide, please. All right, and so what is the problem with the fact that there is water running over these surfaces? These are all examples of types of things that are going to get washed up into our waterways. I'm sure we're all familiar with seeing an empty parking lot and seeing oil left in the parking lot from cars that are leaking, sediment, or like sand over the winter when we're salting and sanding our roads. All that excess sediment gets washed into the drain. We can find bacterial issues in our water because of pet or animal waste that gets washed down the drain. Fertilizer, if not applied appropriately, will get washed out. Turf grass has a very shallow root system and does not hold on to a whole lot, so it's really easy for water to run over the turf grass. Heavy metals from our cars when it rains gets washed off. When we're washing our cars or other things, any soaps or detergents that are getting washed down into the drain. Trash is a really big, obvious one. And then unknown things like I don't even know what that was, but that was something from the Lancet a couple years ago that I don't even think we knew what it was. But and then something that's also not captured is not only are these actual like sediments, chemicals getting into the water, but also the amount of heat. So when that rainwater is hitting these surfaces, it's going into those storm drains and out into Little Traverse Bay at a much higher temperature than it would be naturally. Next slide. So some of the impacts that we see from these. So what is the harm of all these chemicals going out to our waterway? Well, I think for the most part it's pretty obvious that there's degradation to the environment. These are examples of a couple stormwater outfalls in Petoskey. As you can see, when we get heavy rain events, that's the waterfall down into the waterfront. When you get heavy rains that wash a lot of excess sediment out into the bay, we experience things like erosion. So at these stormwater outfalls, like this one particularly out in Boyne City, I believe it is, those outfall because there's so much rain that's coming so fast starts to erode at that outfall there. And I believe that's at a park too. So it starts to be kind of dangerous and unsightly. when washing excess nutrients into the waterway, you can get things like algae blooms. So that's again, depending on how localized, can determine the scale of that impact. Obviously, no one's going to want to go swimming when they see algae like that. But you may also be aware of problems like harmful algae blooms like they have out in Lake Erie. Those are some examples of what increased nutrients in the water body. And then also, sorry, no worries. And then the other thing too is obviously the garbage gets washed out into the bay. That plastic can break down really easily with all the the added sunlight and wave action. And fish out in the bay have been found to have plastic in their digestive systems. All right, so kind of how this whole project came about was that we were noticing at the Watershed Council, there were some Emmett County, the county itself, and then some other local jurisdictions were interested in trying to come up with something to provide protections for water quality related to stormwater. Charlevoix County has kind of led the way in the stormwater management efforts by passing a uniform stormwater ordinance in which all townships and municipalities adopted this stormwater ordinance that the county enforces. And I should say all but one. I think there's one township that didn't. And so as part of this project with determining that, Emmett County has, basically told us there's a need for, our assistance with this. And then, knowing that this is possibly one model that Charlevoix uses that could maybe be applied here, we wanted to be able to gather all this information and kind of help Emmett County and other local municipalities and townships to determine if this could be something that can be applied here, whether it's something uniform or help something on a local scale. So we're collecting all this baseline data by conducting surveys with local officials in Charlevoix County. And then we'll also be surveying Emmett County local officials as well to kind of determine where the gaps are. Is this uniform code even working for Charlevoix? And then hopefully we'll be able to then, kind of apply or start to work with individual organizations in the county and determine if this is something that we could apply large scale. Next slide, yes. Okay, so aside from just the local policy protections that ordinances can provide, there are things that we can do to kind of address any stormwater concerns that are on, within town now. And we call this, they would be called stormwater best management practices, or we typically refer to them as green stormwater infrastructure or GSI. So this is an approach to stormwater management that works with nature. So what you're doing is you're capturing that stormwater and treating it on site instead of it going into a storm drain. So you allow that water to kind of infiltrate the ground. The plants can uptake any excess nutrients. The soils and the microbes can help break down, any potential chemicals. Not all, I'm not going to say it's, it's not a blanket approach to chemical treatment. So for example, we have a rain garden here. This is actually one of Petoskey that's treating or capturing that storm water from that parking lot there and also from the sidewalk and keeps it out of the storm drains. We have things like permeable pavers, which allow water to kind of go through those cracks and into the ground, opposed to over the surface of the land. Green roofs, tree pits. So this one you can't really tell, but all the storm water that comes into this drain right here actually goes into this underground like storage pit that again waters the tree and then also allows that storm water to go into the ground. There's also less aesthetically pleasing options. This is one's in underground storage where it goes there's these big tunnels underground which allows it to store and slowly filter. And these options are helpful because number one, like I think this is more pleasing to the eye than to see a bunch of concrete, if you can see flowers and such. But it also can extend the life of that gray stormwater infrastructure. So instead of sending all the excess water through your pipes, by adding less water to that system, you're hopefully extending the life of that infrastructure. All right. Okay. So as I said, we got this grant just earlier this year. So kind of where we're at with this process is just kind of the education portion of it. So I'm out, I've been reaching out to local governments to, see if they're willing to have me come give you a presentation, brief presentation on what stormwater is. And then we're going to be continuing those conversations with Charlevoix and county local officials. And then the hopeful end result of this, and this is likely to be a phased project, well, this is only phase one that we're funding for right now, is that we'll hopefully be working with these local jurisdictions to come up with some language for an ordinance, whether that be local or, specific to that municipality, or whether or not that's something that would be, if anyone's looking to doing it, countywide. So I will say that currently we are understaffed. So this project's on a little bit of a hold right now. So while I'm out, giving my presentations, we might be just a little bit behind on actually getting, a summary of this information that we will provide to local governments to let you know what we found. So that's it. Are there any questions? Yeah.
What was the grant amount for? And in regards to, you do the education part, what is the name on who does the policy part?
So when we applied for this grant, we had a local policy director, his name was Casey Cook. She moved back to Indiana this summer, so we have been a local policy person for a while. And so that's who we're still waiting to fill that position right now. But we do have, Jennifer McKay is our statewide policy director, so if you do have any policy questions, you're able to reach out to her still.
And the amount of the grant?
That is a good question. I want to say it was around 20,000, but I can look that up and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
No, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. All right, we will move on to item B on the discussion section. We'll just get there. That is approval of the harbor plan. As you know, the Harbor Commission has been working or have been working on the harbor plan for several months, probably a year now. The process started out with, I edited the plan for all the process started out with, we hired contracted with John Baker, who did a survey of the marina to see how many boats, different types of boats were out there, the types of uses going on in the water. That was, I believe, in August of last year. And then I edited the plan for factual information and updated housing data and all other information like that. And then we took it this year to the Harbor Commission for several discussions on the goals and objectives. And finally, at the last meeting, we also had a couple public meetings, public comments, public hearings on it, sorry. And then we, at the last Harbor Commission meeting in October, the Harbor Commission gave us approval. So the next step in the process is for council to review it and either approve and adopt it or take it back to the Harbor Commission if needed. There is one change in this plan that the Harbor Commission has not seen, and that is after the meeting, I received an email from Mike Esposito talking about how there was some updated law that we had cited. And so I sent it to Jim Raymer and he updated the laws, the state laws and federal laws that were cited. And that's marked in blue in this document. So those are the only changes that are to this that what the Harbor Commission actually has seen. So right there, just updating the public acts. And then after this, after council approval, we'll just send it to the DNR and to the neighboring townships to let them know, hey, it's been approved and ratified. It doesn't need their approval. We just have historically sent it to them. I believe Jim Bartlett, the Harbor Commission chair, is here too, if you have any questions as well about the process.
I was at the meeting. I think it looks great. I think there was one thing council was going to talk about, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, the Ford Park launch things in our packet.
Oh yeah, that was the Ford Park. That was at the next.
Is that the next?
That's part of the marine and waterfront.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think the plan looks good. A lot of work went into it. A lot of folks weighing in on it. So
You're talking about the rate,
that's what. So that's on the next part. So I think the plan looks good.
I was at the last meeting as well. I thought it was a
Yeah.
really good discussion about
Lots
the
of-
vision and the plan, so I think it's good. So you need a motion to approve?
Yeah, motion adopted.
I would make a motion to adopt.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Al Baker.
Yes.
John Cox.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yes, Jim.
I just want to thank, from the commission's perspective, the work that Victor and the staff did putting that together. There was a tremendous amount of effort and background that was helpful to the commission. And so wanted to make sure he got a little pat in the back as they deserve.
Jamie.
Thank you.
John, big document.
All right, moving on now. This is item 3C, what Nancy was getting at here. Setting the marina waterfront rates for 2023. And I apologize, we didn't have access to our servers last week. They were down for quite a few days, so I was not able to show you an edited form of our actual waterfront fee schedule. But I've put all the information here in the memo of the council. And so the Harbor Commission looked at all the rates like they do annually, and they made several increases and changes to the rates. And I've broken it up into the waterfront rate adjustments they made, and then there was also a proposed new waterfront fee requirement. So I suggest we tackle the waterfront rate adjustments. Council can either approve those adjustments all at once or individually if they want to have more discussion on them. But in general, the seasonal dock slips and the seasonal moorings were increased by 8%. So it's seems like a substantial increase, but due to inflation and due to the Harbor Commission some years increasing and some years not, they felt this was appropriate given the inflation, and they didn't feel it would have an impact on those users or significant impact on those users who do that, who have seasonal docks and moorings. Transient moorings, they increased by $5, and 200 series should be 25 to 30, not 25 to 20. Sorry about that. And for similar reason, it was similar to the 8% raise. The seasonal dinghy storage for non-seasonal mooring holders, they've increased that by $15, as well as kayak storage from $15, which is from $200 to $215. All the other rates they propose to remain the same, such as the transient daily rates and the launch fee rates, launch ramp fees. So, and of course, again, Jim Barlow is here to answer any other questions from the chair's perspective, but this is a summary of the hour they spent talking about rates.
Am I right? There are waiting lists for all of them?
Yes.
Yeah, that's, so.
There's 100 or something for the docks, I believe. This
Yeah,
docks
big
looks like
waiting
maybe
list,
60 or
almost
70
all.
for the kayaks.
Does this keep us in line with neighboring municipalities as far as where we're at in comparison?
It continues to keep the Harbor Springs seasonal dock rates 20 to 25% higher than any of the other seasonal dock rates, Husky, Northport, whatever, pick a spot. But it also keeps us 20 to 25% under what the Harbor Springs private marinas are charging, which has been balanced at the commission table. We've tried to keep over the years. In essence, it's a status quo, because if you adjust by inflation, it means you're not going backwards, you're not going forward, you're kind of holding it all down, and that's where the 8% number came from.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second it.
To approve all the waterfront rate adjustments as well.
Bill Dyke.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
John Cox.
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, the second part here is there's a proposed new waterfront fee requirement, and that is, they talked a little bit about this, but to require all boats that are launched at Ford Park to have a permit. Right now, the current situation is you have a commercial permit for those who operate a commercial business at Ford Park. They pay a specific fee, whether or not they're in town or out of town. And then residents can get a daily launch permit, or a seasonal launch permit. And you get a permit only if you have your trailer that's going to be parked at Ford Park. So if you don't have a trailer parked at Ford Park, you don't get a permit because you don't need one. So right now the proposal was to launch, every boat that launches from there is required to have a permit. And a couple of questions that have arisen, I've talked to other people since then, and some of the questions they had, would someone who owns several boats be required to get a permit for each boat? There's people who own 2 or 3 boats, and that was a question. And I thought it was a fair question. And then, will we still require a separate commercial permit if all the boats that businesses are launching require permits? So, for example, if a business is launching permits as part of its valet or as part of something that a boat they need to work on and they need to launch it to the ramp, do they require a permit for those boats? And if so, should we still have a commercial fee? So I think those are some questions that I know, of course, Jim, you were at, I was listening to the meeting on Zoom, but that was discussed. I don't know if those questions were hashed out in detail at the Harbor Commission meeting, but perhaps council wants to talk about it or kick it back to the Harbor Commission to get some more detail there. From the staff perspective, I talked with Michael Johnson. I've talked to their staff. We sat and talked about how we would handle this, and we can probably handle this relatively easy as long as we have someone there full-time on the weekends to be watching out for the boats. So I don't think from an administrative perspective, it'd be too cumbersome, but it's just getting the clarification on exactly which boat needs a permit. And from the motion that the Harbor Commission made was that every boat being launched should have a permit. And from my perspective, that means every boat that goes into water for launch, whether it's a commercial or residential or whatnot. So even if you own 5 boats, each of your boats requires a permit. So.
Well, I have a couple thoughts because I've been thinking about it since that meeting, how to handle this, because I think it was Mike who brought up that residents, say us, we have 2 or 3 boats and we buy one permit, one seasonal permit, hang it on our truck, and we can launch any of those boats for the same fee. And then we were talking about the valet boats, each needing their own permit. So I understood the discrepancy there, and I don't like it when it doesn't feel fair to me. So what I was thinking about is what if instead of per boat, and it was by owner. So whether you had a valet boat that you owned that you let Irish's launch for you, that owner needed to have a permit for his boat. If that owner had 2 boats that Irish's launched, he would only need 1 permit. Same as if I have 2 boats and I launch both of them. And it's that to me felt more fair, that if we were going to give private individuals the ability to buy a permit and launch however many boats they had, why should we make it different for someone else? So in terms of the commercial license, if Irish has bought a commercial license, whatever was decided, any boat that Irish has owned, like new boats that they were going to sell, or Wallstrom's owned, they were going to sell, they could launch any of those for their commercial license. But each of their valet boats, which are owned by the owner, would have to have a permit. Does that make sense? I know what I'm trying to say. I'm just not trying to. So rather than basing it on the boat itself, you both base it on the owner of the boat who needs the permit. So then Irish's and Wallstrom's would get a hang tag for their truck if they were loading one of their boats to go out and run it and make sure it worked right, just like an individual would. Does that make sense to you guys? I've had some time to get through, so it makes sense to me. What do you think?
I'm wondering if that's something that we should try to decide here or something that should go back to the Harbor
I
Commission.
think it should go back to the commission to
Then I
think
think there are
about.
complexities and nuances, me not being a voter, that I think I understood what you said as far as it being fair to the actual operations within the harbor. I don't know.
I think it should go back to Harbor Commission to look at different ways of viewing it, because I agree the way it was talked about at the meeting didn't feel quite fair to, like Mike said, he has 2 boats and he can launch them for 1 permit. And we're asking for a permit for every other boat, every single boat in the commercial zone.
Right.
So I think Harbor's, they're the better ones to discuss it because they're all boaters.
Right.
And I think we'd be happy to revisit that. That was a long meeting
It was.
and we had a lot on our agenda, and so we're happy to take a look at that. But I think the overall purpose here was to provide more fairness down there as much as we can.
Mhm.
Exactly. So now the question is how to implement the nuts and bolts of that. And I think that should go back.
Yeah, I think that would make good sense.
All right, so then
Let's do that.
I'll kick it back. JB, we'll schedule a special meeting or however you want. Okay, moving on. 3D, 2022 Parks Master Plan approval. So the Parks and Rec Board, as you know, was formed early this year in January. They started having their first meetings, and much of their time so far this year has been creating a Parks Master Plan. And of course, staff, Rachel Boone, has been working diligently on creating the plan. The last time the city had a Parks Plan was in the early 1990s. We did have a waterfront parks plans, maybe in the mid-2010s, maybe 2017 to 2019. But that was solely focused on the waterfront parks. The last actual plan that encompassed all parks was in the early 1990s. So, of course, a lot of work had to be done to update because a lot of different stats and demographics and things have changed since then. But anyway, so the plan has been worked on. The Parks Board held a public hearing on it. And now it comes to council for official review and approval. Rachel, I don't know if there's anything you want to say or add, or Dana, the chair.
We spent a lot of time talking about it, and probably the part we spent most time talking about was goals and objectives, since there hasn't been an update in a while. And yeah, we feel like we're ready to go forward, and by approval, then this will give us access to some grants that we hadn't had before.
Well put together plan. So thank you. Browsing through it. Yes.
It does look complete. Is it ready to be acted on by this board?
I think it's a good plan. I actually read the whole thing, and I like that all the parks are included in it. You know, even some of our real small parks are, it's a comprehensive plan over all the parks, which I really like. There's a lot of information there. A lot of background information and surrounding area information, and yeah, it's taking a lot of work to get it there. I think it's, and it, again, it's a plan. It's not a law that's going to be done. It's just a plan of what we're looking at. So I think it's a good plan. I feel comfortable passing it along. I think then it goes where? Where does it go after here?
Send it to
It goes to the townships?
It goes to the DNR.
Yeah, it'll be sent
Yeah.
to Emmett County,
Yeah.
and other parks departments, planning commissions in the area, and then it'll go to
Then
DNR.
it goes to DNR.
I agree.
Well-
I think a lot of effort went into it. It's very comprehensive and looks at all of the parks. And it's, the first one we've had for a long time. So going forward, it may get some edits along the way, but it's a great starting point.
So do we adopt this plan?
Yeah, that would be the goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would someone like to make a motion to do that?
I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Yeah, you're on the parks plan. I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Should I abstain from that because I sit on that committee, or does it matter?
I don't think.
No, you're on
I think you
board.
need to.
So it's like the JV voting on a harbor.
Yeah.
Usually, John, that's for a planning or zoning
That's
board, site reviews.
I just want to make sure.
Nope.
Well, good, passes.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks for all the good work.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item E. So this is regarding the DDA Principal Shopping District Special Assessment Report Review and Resolution. So there's two things here. One is a report of the need for, or kind of a recap of the need for a special assessment and how it's going to be funding, and then a resolution to basically have the assessor open the roll and to create the roll and to come back to council for approval of the special assessment for the CBD district, which would be on businesses and on all businesses within this central business district. The report that I have in here was built on from a previous report in 2016 or 17 to kind of give a little more background history of the administrative process on how the DDA administration came to be. But what it really includes is, as you see in the downtown development plan, it really takes out those projects and the goals that the DDA is focusing on, such as, improving existing lighting downtown, streetscape project, coordinating with different departments, et cetera, as well as some of those smaller projects that are listed in that report. So the detail comes into the administration, and again, so much of this was in the previous report when council approved this special assessment back in 2016-17. Kind of explained how the DDA rekindled itself back in 2012 by having a placemaking event. The board created a visioning process, and then they began contracting with Harbor Inc. for administrative services. And that first year, they allocated, I believe, something like $5,000 for it. And Obviously, the harboring, the director was doing a lot more work than that. And so then they committed $25,000 annually to it. And now that the DDA has more funding and the TIF has been allowed, the capture has continued to grow. The DDA is allocating around between $25,000 and $30,000 a year. And they project that around $30,000 a year plus any, increases, salary increases that are typical for administrative services would be what's needed to operate administratively, unless there might be some special assistance they may need for, I think last year they took some help with the website creation, things like that. But so that's really where it is from an administrative perspective. From the development projects, they're kind of detailed here as they were detailed in the development plan, but really the anticipated costs for all the projects over the lifespan of this a special assessment would be about $1.75 million. Of course, that's not all through special assessment, but that's why special assessment is needed to help fund these projects. They're looking to other things such as a TIF capture grants and donations to fund other aspects of that as well. Margaret, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that, but it pretty much encapsulates what the plans, it's a TIF plan of the downtown plan.
So at this point, we're functioning right now and with the combination of the TIF plan and the special assessment. So assessment definitely adds to the revenue and ability for us to do projects and do more on our development plan.
Yeah, and that's
Timeframe is the full 15 years of the new TIF plan.
yes. And so that's where the resolution comes into play, is where we have a resolution that you see attached, and it talks about, again, those projects. It's required language for the resolution, but also shows that it would be $1 a day for each of the businesses payable as it has been on February 15th. And
Makes sense to me. It's the continuation of the assessment to the businesses in the downtown district. And we're not really approving anything other than the effort to come up with a plan for final approval. So I would say yes.
Any public comment on this? I know there's been claims in the paper lately that DDA is too expensive, so. Anybody? If not, someone like to make a motion.
to adopt to approve the
Move forward.
resolution. Yeah.
I would so move.
I'll second.
Do a roll call on this, please.
John Cox,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
Al Dyke,
Yes.
motion carried.
All right. Last but not least is 3F is a resolution to apply for Michigan DNR grants. So the DNR has received some federal funding and combined it with state funding to create something that's called Michigan Sparks Grant. Rachel has been working on this and on what projects would be viable. But after talking with staff here, and this program really requires, it allows you to apply for 3 projects in 3 different rounds. So the first round is coming up in December, and then they'll have 2 more rounds in 2023. And in particular, they're looking for projects to provide safe and accessible public recreation facilities that will improve health and encourage people to recreate outdoors, and those that build onto existing infrastructure. There's a slight, I won't say bias, but desire for communities that are impacted by COVID that have a little higher priority, but it's open to all municipalities, and all municipalities can apply for up to 3 projects. The 2 that were on our radar immediately, because we have plans for them and we've been in the talks for several years for them, have been the boardwalk and the bikeway, the spill path, little Traverse Wheelway. And so why we look at those 2 is we just got temporary approval from MDOT to use the spillway as a bike path. They just want to see our final construction plans that Benchmark has been approving, but after Harbor Inc. had volunteered for a year to monitor water levels in that spillway, and we provided that information and data to MDOT, and they saw no concerns anymore with potential issues. We probably keep that spillway closed during the high risk months of late winter, early spring, when we're likely to experience a major flood. But other than that, they're okay with it. So knock on wood, hopefully they will look at those construction plans and give us approval. So being that we have those 2 projects kind of already in the works, been in the works for several years, being that we have, they're supposed to be mostly funded by donors. We already have several hundreds of thousands of dollars for the boardwalk, and Harbor Inc. has committed, to raising money for that, the bike path. We figure those are 2 best projects to start with, and then the Parks Board and Council can discuss further if we don't get any this round, or we want to apply for future grants in this next round, we can look at those particular projects. There's no guarantee, of course, a lot of communities will be applying for this, but it's worth a shot to continue applying for these. So there's 2 separate resolutions in here. One is for the boardwalk and one is for the bike path, just saying that we're committed to applying for a grant, that we'd be committed to these projects, as we've talked about them before. And I do have the plans in here from just the basic plans, such as the boardwalk plans that we have. And then the bike path, it's this purple path, just purple on the north side of M119. We could always look at changing that right now. We could, if we want to go there, go up to Hoyt Street and come down. But right now, the purple path is what we have. The real construction details that we need is what MDOT has, is for going in the spillway underneath the MDOT. That's really what we need approval from them, because that's their right of way. So the 2 resolutions would just go to support these, applying for the grants for these projects. They don't commit us to doing the projects, they just commit us to applying for a grant.
Make a motion to adopt both resolutions.
Second.
All in favor, please say. Is that a question?
No, sorry.
Okay.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Let's go get some money.
Before we go to closed session, I just really quickly go through the city manager's report. Again, sorry about the format. We didn't have access to our servers, so I just, of course, this makes things easier for people to read and all my other stuff. But anyway, so some updates. I just talked about MDOT giving us preliminary approval on the spillway. Good news there. MDOT will be opening 1 lane on M119 west of State Street for northbound traffic. That's where the washout happened. They'll keep the southbound lane closed until they have a permanent fix there, which will probably be sometime in spring next year. So it'll be a 1 lane closure there. So we'll still have some detour traffic, but Lucas Fandersy has been talking with MDOT on that closure. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Lucas, or is that?
Right now, they're doing some final touches on a few barricades and a few more signs that to satisfy their needs. They should be installed in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll remove the class 3s and open up northbound and southbound. You're coming into town is actually detoured on the West Lake at Little Traverse Township Hall. It's still open for residents and everything right up to Harrison Street or Washington, I should say. But they'll detour onto West Lake and down State Street for southbound traffic.
Thanks, Lucas. As a reminder, we probably, yeah, Rachel.
We have a question.
To make, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the public hearing is this meeting. It was not in the paper, just,
Okay.
so there are public comments, we just have to take on
All right.
this meeting.
Okay, yep. I will, thanks for that reminder. So we'll put that back out there after this. Yeah. Elections are tomorrow, November 8th. Polls open 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. The city did fulfill its vacant utility payroll position. Becky Elkema has started. She's been here about 2 weeks now, so we're glad to have her on board. We're fully staffed again. And also some good news, we received a $100,000 donation from the Offield Family Foundation for the boardwalk. And we also received a $100,000 matching donation from the Arshire Foundation. Their $100,000 donation is a matching donation for donations, well, from anyone, but they won't count matches from foundations or businesses over $25,000 as part of the match. But it's really great. So we're going to start a campaign for that to try to get some matching donors for that. But that will add some money. And it was a gracious donation from both of the foundations, and we're happy that they are on board to help fund this important community project. So be looking out for more activity with the fundraising here now that we have a matching campaign going on, and Rachel will be working on that a little bit with me. So some standard board and commission meetings. The Noise Control Committee is working on a survey to gather public perception on noise issues. The Planning Commission approved the city's application for the reinstallation of the playground at Zorn Park. The tree board discussed the tree replacement species for the anticipated pine tree removal project along M119 along Bay Bluffs to the skate park. We've been getting bids on that, so we'll probably come back to council sometime in the future, probably December, for any bids on that project. And finally, there's just a couple of manager meetings, 911 meeting and MMEA meeting. So any questions on the city manager report before we go to?
Yes, we removed the MDOT easement from the consent agenda. And do we need to discuss that now?
So no, I would suggest, I'm going to get in touch with MDOT. MDOT sent us a letter saying that we need to make a decision. They sent it to me in mid-late October by November 14th to get council approval to get an easement on our property for that culvert that we talked about several months ago. And they said, if not, they'd be looking at condemning our property, basically taking what they want. So that's why I put this on this agenda. But we did receive an objection for some attorney representing some people in Wequatansi. So I'll talk to MDOT, see if there's, we can hold a special meeting to address some of their concerns and issues and take it from there. If not, we'll come back to you and do what we have to do. But Jim and I will sit down and talk and hopefully have a special meeting. So. All right, so what I heard from Rachel was we need to have a public hearing. I missed that part, sorry, on the parks plan. So I guess maybe we should reopen up to a public hearing for any comments on the parks plan.
Sure.
I think we should probably make a motion to open the public hearing and then a motion to close at the end.
So I would move to open the public hearing.
Second. Roll call.
John Cox.
Yes.
Al Dika.
Yes.
Nancy Randall.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Any public comment?
Is there any public comment on the parks? On the parks plan? Excuse me. Has anyone read it?
Well, it's been on the website for a couple months now, so it'll be on there still, so you can read it after the fact.
Well, let's close the public comments.
I would make a motion to close the public comment section.
Second. All in favor?
So I think we should then probably make sure we re-vote to have another vote on approving the plan.
Yes.
So you need a motion
To approve it, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the parks.
I'll second it. All in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
All right, so next is going to closed session. If Jim, if you want to read that.
All right, we would need a council person to move to meet in closed session under section 8E of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. To consult with its city attorney regarding trial or settlement strategy in connection with the Andrew Potter litigation on the ground that an open meeting discussion of strategy or settlement would have a detrimental effect on the litigating or settlement position of the city. So I'll make this. Second.
Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
John Leo.
Yes.
Al Baker.
Yes.
John Cox. Yes. We're in closed session at